Welcome! This is my first video for the Forge, and today I'm going to do two things. The first is to do a simple budget deck tech, and the second is to discuss some basic deck building considerations that would help you to make this budget build a little bit stronger. Hopefully, by considering these recommendations when brewing your own decks, you'll be able to build more competitive, consistent, and reliable decks. So, without further ado, let's get to the deck. Today's deck is going to center around a classic modern card, Relentless Rats. Now, this is an interesting card because it has synergy with itself, and also because it's one of the few cards where you can have more than 4 of them in a deck. People love to play Relentless Rats, but it's notorious for not being very competitive. Now, Relentless Rats on its own allows us to abuse the synergy of Relentless Rats to make an enormous horde of squealing death. And here's the basic build. 20 swamps, 40 Relentless Rats. As you can see, this basic build has some benefits. Being mono black means we can keep the budget down, and having only one unique card means that playing the deck will be straightforward and simple. But there are several reasons why people don't generally play the Relentless Rats deck. Number 1, it's a glass cannon. This means it's powerful when it works, but it's easily disrupted or destroyed. For instance, if your opponent casts a singling meddling mage, extirpate, or surgical extraction, you're left with essentially a deck with 20 lands and can't play anything else. Number 2, it's non-interactive. A deck like this seeks to play its own game and doesn't really care what the opponent's doing. The gameplay is pretty straightforward, but gets old fast, and the deck gets boring to play. And the biggest reason is, it's just too slow. Even if you got your ideal hand, let's say 3 or 4 swamps and 3 or 4 Relentless Rats, and the next draws are perfect, you still wouldn't play anything until turn 3, and then you can only do one thing per turn until turn 6, and that's in the best case scenario. So the question is, can we do anything about this? Of course. So let's see if we can solve some of these problems. The first thing we can do is speed up the deck by adding Aether Vial and Thrumming Stone. So now our deck looks something like this. 4 Aether Vial, 2 to 4 Thrumming Stones, 32 Relentless Rats, or maybe if like 1 or 2 more depending on the Thrumming Stones, and 20 Swamps. Now the Aether Vials are super important as they'll allow us to get 2 rats at a time starting at turn 4, and Thrumming Stone allows us to play all of our rats on turn 6. It also allows us to vial in rats at instant speed, which means that we don't have to wait for our turn to play them, and we can do a few combat tricks to our opponent. These changes speed up the deck a bit, but the deck is still pretty weak to disruption and still can't do anything meaningful until turn 3. We can make a few changes here to fix this. First of all is we can substitute 4 Typhoid Rats for 4 Relentless Rats. Typhoid Rats will help to keep enemy threats at bay because, let's face it, no one wants to trade their beater for a crappy 1/1. The second thing is we're going to trade another 4 Relentless Rats for 4 Pack Rats. Pack Rats allow us to switch over to a similar threat and can make all the Relentless Rats useful in the case of a meddling mage. If your opponent can somehow turn off Relentless Rats, Pack Rats can be a secondary win condition, or in many games can actually be your primary win condition. Lastly, we're going to switch out another 4 Relentless Rats for 4 Ravenous Rats. Ravenous Rats gives us an early game chump blocker combined with a little bit of hand disruption that can really help you survive longer. Now, a lot of people might say, well, we had to give up 12 Relentless Rats for that. But you still have more than 20 in your deck, which is a third of your deck, and that's really substantial. It's rare that you're ever going to have all of them out anyways, and it's really a good substitution. Finally, we can substitute 4 more Relentless Rats for a mix of Duress or Inquisition of Kozilek. I'd lean a little more towards Duress because we're not really afraid of creatures, but more afraid of board wipes and things like that. So maybe 3-in-1 or 2-in-2, and depends on your budget and how you feel about it. Now, our last step will be to fix our lands. The most important land to include is a Swarm Yards. This amazing land will keep your rats from being killed and can be devastating when it regenerates a Typhoid Rat. As a last option, a playset of Cavern of Souls helps to make our creatures uncounterable, but it's really expensive. Like 1 Cavern of Souls is going to cost pretty much the same as almost its entire deck. If you happen to have them already, or you have a fistful of money that you don't mind spending, go ahead and add them to the deck. Now, as a final note, I would consider adding 4 Muta Vaults, Muta Vaults are a little more expensive, but they're not that expensive. And what they can do is really pump up your rats by just creating an extra rat. And for pack rats, since their power and toughness depends on how many rats you have, can provide that little bit of extra boost. Another cool thing is that you can do that at instant speed on your opponent's turn after they've declared blockers and maybe screw up their blocking a little bit. A lot of people forget that you can do that, and it's a nice little combat trick that you can use to pump out a few extra damage or take out one of their creatures. So that's really the whole deck. It's a really simple build and it's really fun to play. Aside from Caverns of Souls and Muta Vault, it's a pretty cheap deck to build, especially for Modern. And it can actually be surprisingly competitive. Now, you're not going to win a GP or a Pro Tour with it, but definitely it's fun to play and can really dominate in casual environments or even against a lot of Tier 2s and maybe sometimes against a Tier 1 deck. So give it a try and see if you like it. Thanks for tuning in to The Forge, and remember, if you like this video, please leave a comment, subscribe, or give us a thumbs up. We really like that, and it tells me what kind of things you like. If there's something you do want to see, please leave a comment and let me know, so that way I can know what you're looking for. Please stay tuned for gameplay footage, and you can see some of the ways that Relentless Rats can be used, and to see how competitive the deck really is. Thanks for tuning in, and join me next time.